If you're looking for a side-by-side that can handle everything, being a workhorse around the house or the farm, a hunting rig, or handle that sporty, aggressive off-road riding, then the Wolverine RMAX 1000 could be what you're looking for. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for checking in. We are down here in beautiful Sand Hollow, Utah, and we are driving the Wolverine RMAX 1000 from Yamaha for the first time today. So Yamaha built the RMAX for that recreational sport category. If you are looking for a side-by-side that can do everything from utility use to giving you that adrenaline rush when you step on the gas and has suspension to back that up, this would be a really good option. Now, Yamaha's not going to shy away. When you ask them who this was built to compete against, one of the first names that come to mind is the General XP 1000. I'm not gonna sit here and rattle off a bunch of specs. We're gonna get in this thing. We're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna drive it around. We're gonna give you our personal feedback, tell you about what we've experienced. You know, the XP 1000, the General, has been really popular from Polaris, and Yamaha wants a slice of that pie. All right, so we're in the machine for the first time, getting our first taste of the new RMAX 1000. So let me preface this by saying that there's three models to this machine. You've got the limited edition, which we're actually in right now. You've got the XTR, and then there's the standard model. And I'll touch a little bit more on the differences between the different models, but first of all, I just want to talk about how this thing feels in the cockpit, because as a customer, that's the first thing you're doing, right? You're going to the dealership, you're sitting inside these things, and you're kind of feeling how they feel and the touch and how comfortable they are. And that was one big emphasis that Yamaha wanted to do with these, is they want to make sure it was comfortable. And the new trend nowadays, we can see it more and more, is some of the companies are making their cars or their side-by-sides have almost like a truck feel to the interior. And that's what Yamaha wanted to do, and I can honestly say they did a good job. The steering wheel's got a really good, comfortable rubberized coating feel to it. So you've got rubber pads on the inside and the outside, a little bit of comfort for the rider's knees. So the cockpit on this does in fact feel very comfortable. So one of the big aspects and really cool features about this new RMAX is there are three different modes that you have in the engine. Now you still have a high and low, which you would have really in any side-by-side, but what Yamaha is doing now is you have three different drive modes. You have sport, you have trail, and you have crawl. And on the limited edition and the XTR, you just have a toggle switch right here on the dash, and you can adjust that on the fly. And what people need to understand about these different modes is that it doesn't lessen the power. So in sport mode, that's your most aggressive, and this is a drive-by-wire system, so you don't have a cable-controlled throttle. And so what's cool is that you've got your sport mode, so as I step on the throttle, it's very reactive. That's gonna give you that aggressive, that exciting feel down low, give you that really hard acceleration. You've got your trail mode, which is going to smoothen out that power, still be sporty, but not as aggressive as obviously sport mode. And then you have crawl. And the crawl mode is actually what I'm in right now. If you can see this terrain we're going through, it's really rough. Sand Hollow's got a very good mix of sand and dunes, but you've also got a lot of rock crawling that you can do as well. And what's cool about all three modes is that you don't lose power. So if you go from sport to crawl, even in crawl mode, you still get 100% of the power from the engine, but it just tunes it in a way that it's not as aggressive and it makes it smoother, so you get the power to the ground. And I started riding in sport mode today, and we were going through some aggressive rocks, and then I went to the crawl mode, and it is a noticeable difference in how the power is transferred to the wheels when I step on the gas. And right now, going through this rough, rocky section, crawl mode's really nice to have, because I don't get that herky-jerky sensation of hitting the gas and accelerating. And so the crawl mode actually for this type of terrain is really nice. And like I said, you're not sacrificing horsepower. You still get all the power from the engine. It just delivers it differently to the wheels so you can hook up and get that traction. As you can see, we're just creeping along this. Now, talking about the engine, something that Yamaha is really bragging themselves on. Again, if we're comparing this to the General XP1000, Yamaha is saying that they've got best-in-class horsepower. They're saying you're going to be right about 108 horsepower. The General XP1000 claims it has 100, so a little bit better in the horsepower category there. But also something that is really cool, that is unique to Yamaha, is they have two clutches in here. You have a centrifugal clutch, and you have your traditional CVT, which we see on all different side-by-sides. And Yamaha has a 10-year warranty on their belt, which is really unheard of, especially in this category in the side-by-side world. And the reason that they feel so confident that they can give you a 10-year warranty on a clutch is because by utilizing that centrifugal clutch inside the engine, it doesn't allow the belt to slip, or it doesn't allow the belt to just burn up as easily as you would in a traditional CVT clutch. And what's also cool, and again, this is unique to Yamaha, is it doesn't matter, you know, traditionally in a side-by-side, say a Polaris, for example, when you're gonna be doing slow rock crawling like we're doing right now, you've gotta put that thing in low. If you don't, you're probably gonna burn up your clutch. What's cool about the Yamahas is that using that centrifugal clutch is that you can still be in high mode, four-wheel drive, doing this slower rock crawling, and you're not gonna burn up the clutch or the belt. So you still wanna put it in low. They're still gonna tell you to put this thing in low if you are doing this type of riding. But if you are out there cruising and there's a section of terrain where maybe you don't wanna have to stop and go switch it into low, but it is gonna be steep and slow, you can leave it in high, but you don't have to stress about burning up your belt. So that's pretty cool. I like that because you're not thinking about it too much, and if you do forget to put it in low, you're not gonna have a burn up belt stuck on the side of the trail. All right, next category, suspension. That is what you wanna know. Obviously with this machine, like I mentioned earlier, it's that sport recreational category. So what you want is you wanna be able to have utility, versatility, but you need suspension that can handle the aggressive off-road riding. If you're out here in Sand Hollow, you've got big old sand whoops, but you also want it to be able to handle, you know, the slower stuff, be comfortable. So Yamaha is using what they call their Qs3 suspension, which stands for Quick Switch 3. And it's really cool suspension. And while they were doing this and designing this vehicle, they wanted to simplify it. You know, they've got their YXZ, which they say has the most adjustability in class. But for these machines, the Qs3 they felt was simplified. It's high quality Fox suspension. Now on the limited model, which we're driving right now, and we're actually in the 4-seater as well, there's a switch, toggle switch right here in the front. I can press that, I can go to firm, medium, or soft. I can do it on the fly, I don't have to stop. So you got 3 mode settings there. Now on the XTR models and on the base model, you have the Q3. So this is the IQS on the limited, which stands for Intelligent Quick Switch. On the XTR model and the standard model, you have their Q3. And what that stands for is Quick Switch 3. And on the suspension itself, there's a dial, and you got 3 modes. Again, soft, medium, hard, but it's really easy to control. You just go to the shock, you spin the dial, it's easy to know which setting you're in. So they just simplified it. They didn't give you too much adjustability to where you might get lost, but they give you enough adjustability that depending on where you're gonna be riding, what you're gonna be doing, you can find a setting that's gonna work for you. So right now we're actually in the comfort mode, obviously doing this type of riding. You want this thing to be plush and soak up all these bumps and rocks that we're going over. But what's another thing that Yamaha really prides themselves on is leader in class for suspension travel in this category. So on the RMAX, you've got over 14 inches, I believe 14.2 inches of travel in the front, and you've got 16.9 in the rear. Both of those numbers beat the General XP1000 as far as travel goes. Now in the 4-seater, this is important, the 4-seater does have a little less travel in the rear. That's obviously because you've got the extended back with the back seats, but it's cool that they're giving you that much travel on the sport recreational machine. So again, that's really gonna be a huge benefactor when you're doing that aggressive riding and you need as much travel as possible to soak up all that stuff. Now real quick, what I want to show you guys too is you've got obviously your 2-wheel drive. What's cool is that on all 3 models, you've got a toggle switch, very easy. 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and then you have a locking differential. Now what's cool and what Yamaha talks about their locking diff is for them it was important, they wanted riders that wanted a true locking differential to have that. So when I switched this to a locking differential, I'm getting all 4 tires spinning all at the same time. It's not like some other Can-Am, for example, where they have a great system, but for them, for their locking differential to kick in, it has to have sensors that sense one of the tires is spinning faster than the others and it will transfer power to that tire. With Yamaha, they said, you know what? We want a true locking differential. We want all 4 tires to have power all the time. Now you are gonna sacrifice a little bit of steering, which is totally acceptable, that's understandable. But for riders that are maybe doing a lot of rock crawling, that are looking for a true locking differential, that's exactly what Yamaha is giving you with these models. All right, so we've reached a section of the trail right now where we are gonna have some high speed, kind of whoop type riding. So, like I mentioned earlier, we're just gonna flip to sport. Now again, on the limited editions, I got the toggle switch right here for the suspension. I'm gonna go to firm. If you're in the XTR, the standard model, you would get out and you would just twist the knob that you have on the actual shock. But here we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge cliff right there.
300-foot drop, about 30 feet to the right.
Welcome to Utah's mesas.
All right, so now we are in the 2-seater. Now with the 2-seater, one of the big differences, and I pointed out earlier, is with the suspension. So the 2-seater, you have over 16 inches of travel in the back. On the 4-seater, you actually get about 3 inches less travel in the back. That's just because, you know, with the extra seats in the back. Another difference too, is that you get a 600-pound dump bed in the back of the 2-seater. On the 4-seater, it doesn't come with that dump bed, but what is nice is that on the 4-seater, is the seats on there actually slide forward. So if you did want to convert your back seats into storage space, they do give you the ability to do that. So one last thing that I wanted to touch on that I've noticed today and that I like is the engine braking. So on the RMAX, and you know, props to Yamaha for doing this, they've got their ultramatic clutch system, which we talked about, which prevents you from burning up the belt, which is awesome. But the engine braking is consistent. And you can contribute that to the fact that Yamaha has a one-way sprag clutch that as you go down these hills, you get real engine brake and it's consistent. You don't get that herky-jerky feeling that sometimes you feel with other machines where you feel like you get a little bit of engine brake and then it releases or it locks up the rear tires. It's just consistent and you can just rely on it. You know exactly what it's gonna do, it's predictable. So engine braking for me, big plus with this machine. All right, everyone, so we just finished up a very long and very fun day here at Sand Hollow. Big thank you to Yamaha for having us out to drive the all-new Wolverine RMAX 1000. Now, with this, for the overall impression, it is very clear that Yamaha, they did their research, and you can tell that they really just crossed their T's and dotted their I's. They did a fantastic job with this vehicle. There's really not many things that I found that I thought were a negative throughout the entire day today. And I really feel like they just paid attention to the small details. That's one thing that I noticed the most is when you get into the cab, it feels more like a truck style cab where, you know, you've got the rubber finish on the steering wheel, which I really, really like that feel on the dash. They've got the rubber panels on the door and on the inside where, you know, it just added a little bit more comfort. The seats are nice. So overall, the comfort was awesome. You know, another small thing I noticed is you have an adjustable steering wheel, can go up and down, but even once you adjust it, you get it where you want it, there's no play. It just feels rock solid. I really like the interior, that aspect. You know, one thing that for me stood out the most with these machines is The power is excellent. You're definitely not gonna wish you had more power when you're driving this, but I loved the 3 driving modes. And I use that all day today. If you're out in the West Coast somewhere where you could have sand and then rock or a little bit of both all in the same day, I was constantly going in and out of the different 3 drive modes because there's such a difference. If you want that excitement, that acceleration right off as soon as you crack the throttle, you go to the sport mode. But when we were doing some real technical rock crawling today, you know, I'd go from sport mode, put it into crawl mode, and then it would just give me controllable power. And like I said earlier, you still get the full range of the horsepower, but it just makes it controllable, so you're getting that power to the ground. You've got the Qs3 on the XTR and the standard model, and then you have the IQS on the limited, but you have 3 different suspension settings. We were messing around with those all today, and that was noticeable. When you're gonna be going fast, high speed, put it in the stiff mode, that's gonna give you the hold up. And I did like the response that this machine has. I feel like the suspension, you know, in the soft mode, it gave you that plush feel, but when you want to go have fun, you're gonna get aggressive, put it in stiff. It was reactive, it wasn't overly stiff, so it really hits all those marks that you would look for in a recreational sport side-by-side. You get the utility aspect. With the 2-seater, you have a 600-pound dump bed. You've got a hitch receiver that comes standard in all 3 models that has a 2,000 capacity on there. The only thing that for me personally that I wasn't a deal breaker whatsoever, but it wasn't something that I really cared for, was the shoulder rest that they have on the inside. I just kind of found myself sometimes hitting that with my arm, and it didn't, for me personally, make me feel like it was keeping me in the cab a little bit better. I know why Yamaha puts it there. Again, it's not a huge deal, but for me, I would have liked to see maybe just a full half door. Aside from that, there was nothing else about this that I could really pick apart. You know, another cool thing that I didn't really touch on while I was driving today is the Adventure Pro system that they have. Now, this comes in the XTR and the limited edition model. And the Adventure Pro is basically a large touchscreen tablet inside your dash. It's very bright, easy to read in the middle of the daytime with bright sunlight. You've got a fully capable GPS. It comes with over 150,000 trails that are already uploaded to it. You've also got full diagnostics, so it shows your RPMs, your engine speed, your engine temps. You've got even an altimeter on there. So it gives you a ton of capabilities, just a lot of great features. One aspect that I really like, they have something called timing mode, I believe, where you can start your route and then you can end your route. So basically starting line, finish line, and you can time it and it will mark that course for you. You can do breadcrumbs where if you need to track back so you can find your way back, you can do that. But what's cool about that timing mode is it's not just little breadcrumbs where sometimes those can be a little bit harder to follow. Instead, it's just an arrow that points you in the direction. So you just follow the direction the arrow is pointing, and you can share those maps and everything that you do on there with your friends that also have the Adventure Pro. Another cool aspect is that it's removable. So if you're out of your machine, you want to take it with you, you can do that. You can plug it in your computer. It does have Wi-Fi on there, or maybe if you're just worried about theft purposes, you can just pop it out, take it with you. Easy to remove and easy to put back in. Some other things that I noticed today that I liked is Yamaha was explaining that they really want to put a big emphasis on keeping water out. You know, you've got those people on the East Coast that are maybe going through a lot of water. But I also noticed too that with the amount of insulation and the way they built this is that I didn't, one, feel like there's a lot of heat coming from the engine into the cab. So that was a plus for me. But I did notice that they did a good job sealing everything off, where I didn't feel like I had a lot of dust coming up from underneath the machine up into the cab area. So a couple things I noticed. One thing I do want to point out is that with the standard model, I talked a lot about those drive modes and how much I like those. The standard model does not come with that knob where you can adjust to from crawl, trail, and the sport mode. Instead, it just comes in the trail mode. And you can't change that. But what's cool is it comes pre-wired. If you do get the standard model and at a later time you do want to upgrade, you can just go buy the knob, you plug it in, and now you have the sport, the trail, as well as the crawl mode, and you can go right through those. But in any case, as I always recommend, if you have the chance, go to your local dealership, get inside one of these things. You're gonna notice the creature comforts that I talked about earlier. Drive one if you have the ability to do so. That way, there's no doubt in your mind, this is gonna be the machine that you're looking for. Questions or comments, if you want more of my personal feedback, I'm more than happy to give that to you, so leave those questions or comments below. If you guys like this first impressions of the new Wolverine RMAX, get subscribed to the Rocky Mountain YouTube channel because we've got a lot of other great content just like you saw today. I am Chase, and we'll see you on the trails.